So we're going to talk a little bit on this final panel about the new city as a platform for innovation, education, and economic progress. So I want to welcome all of our panelists to this stage. So starting with Jeff Mason from Charter Cities Institute and Henry Shterenberg, the president of the World Trade Center in Kyiv. And then, of course, Corey will join on stage. I'm going to stay up here. Yeah, you guys go ahead. I'll stay up here.
I really do want to stop talking in a minute, but I'm not very good at it. I just wanted to really extend a special welcome to the gentlemen here today. One of the things that I've loved about being involved with Smart City Council is our cross-sector collaboration, and I was fortunate enough when I got stuck in Los Angeles when I met you a month ago or whatever to meet Kurt from Charter Cities Institute, which are doing great work, and I'll ask you in a moment to speak briefly to what you're doing. And then, Henry, how did we get on the phone the other day? Alfred, that was my other nice dinner when I was in Los Angeles a month ago. Alfred from Depsol. We'd actually started an initiative in Smart Cities Council in Warsaw to support the situation in Ukraine, and we're calling it, Smart Ukraine, and there are a lot of displaced people, as we know, as a result of this idiotic war and tragic war that's going on. And so it was very easy for us very quickly to decide to work together. And again, as an organisation, when I met Kurt the next day from Charter Cities Institute, the work that you're doing in Africa, and again, that commitment to nobody left behind means Smart Cities isn't just for Washington and New York and Los Angeles, it's for some of the more challenged people and places on the planet. So I was pleased to be able to put this panel together and give a sense, I guess, to the people here in the States where our organisation was founded about what we're doing and opportunities to be involved in the Ukrainian process, in what Charter Cities Institute, who are based here in DC, are doing. So maybe if I hand over, if Jeffrey, can you just quickly introduce for people who don't know Charter Cities Institute what you're doing, and then Henry, I ask you to do the same. Thank you.
Sure. We on? Yep. Sure. So CCI, Charter Cities Institute. So we're a nonprofit organization. Sort of wear two hats. One being think tank, focused on research into cities generally, but especially in low and middle income countries, economic development, policy reform, this kind of thing, special economic zones, special jurisdictions. The second hat that we wear is sort of technical assistance provider. So we work directly with a mix of governments and private sector partners on matters of sort of legislative reform, regulatory reform, as well as assisting individual city developments, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, but other places as well, on things they need with their projects, case study materials, like I said, other regulatory. In some cases, these cities, they have the power to maybe implement some of their own policies and regulations. We help with that. And then we also try to play the role of sort of central convener for all of the different stakeholders that somehow, in some way, fit into the creation of new cities. And in Africa specifically, we've created what's called the Africa's Next 50 Cities Coalition, which is intended to be this sort of umbrella group to pull together financial institutions, both development finance and traditional financial institutions, relevant government agencies and ministries, city developers themselves, infrastructure providers, professional service firms, all of these players that have some role to play in the creation of new cities, but don't maybe necessarily talk to each other. So those are sort of the three main buckets of activities that we're trying to do. Like I said, especially in Africa, where there really is demand for new cities, for new urban spaces on a mass scale. And we're talking about tens of millions of people moving either from rural areas to cities, or maybe from sort of second and third tier cities to primary cities, just every single year. And the financial capacity and the technical capacity just isn't there to keep up. The private sector isn't robust enough to provide jobs at scale at this level of urbanization. And so we're trying to help fill some of these gaps by working with our partners to facilitate the development of new cities, to help ease some of the challenges faced by rapid urbanization, while also facilitating economic development and creating essentially policy laboratories for reform, sort of building off of that traditional special economic zone type model, pushing that further with sort of more devolved governance, more devolved powers to try and figure out what works, what can be done better, how to attract more investment and promote entrepreneurship.
Thank you. And you want to?
Yeah. Hi. My name is Shterenberg, and I'm a founder of Economy of Trust, a Global Inc. Our company aim is to build a platform that allows for, well, it's a blockchain enterprise software that allows any type of transaction from any source of any amount. And I'm also serving as the honorary president of World Trade Center Kyiv. In general, we believe that our organization today is the only organization that is capable of meeting stringent requirements regarding governance and transparency, with all the capital related coming into Ukraine. And generally speaking, our job, our mission, since the day one of the war, was to get ready for the rebuilding effort. We believe that we can overcome 32 years of neglect with the new technologies, which will allow Ukraine to be one of the leading countries in the world based on the availability of what you guys have. And then we want to bring all of that into Ukraine. Thank you.
So one of the things, when we talked about airports before and building playbooks and standards and tools to be able to deliver projects that we as an organisation want to be able to develop, can you give people a sense of the scale of the sort of work? I mean, the number of $1 trillion of reconstruction has been bandied around, but if we can, as an organisation, help with those tools and playbooks and building vendor ecosystems that can participate, yes. We want Ukraine to be back and better than ever in the shortest possible time, right?
Well, one of the things is you're going to hear us talk, and you and I, Corey, talked about it early on. When we build a lot of smart cities, right, it's going to be a smart country. So imagine that you can have a logistics system that is thought through from the watermelon in the Kherson region that gets delivered into the western part of Ukraine and then being processed and shipped out in Europe all in one day. Think about that opportunity, connecting all of the hardware throughout the country. So it's endless what Ukraine needs, and I prepared the presentation I hope to share today with everybody about all of the things we're going to be doing right now in Ukraine.
We do want to share that presentation through our platform as well.
Not a problem.
So what's the scale of what you're working on in Africa at the moment? I think, if I remember correctly, before Kurt had his third glass of wine, he was talking about something like 33 cities at the moment, or something, a significant number of greenfield cities in Africa. And what's the role you're playing? And again, I think there's a strong role for us as a global industry organisation to work with you and take those governance frameworks that you have to some of the things we're doing elsewhere, but also then to bring our playbooks and tools and educational resources to Africa in a similar way. I think you talked, Henry, about 72 or something new cities
Absolutely.
and zones in Ukraine, right? So for us, if we can bring those tools and as I say, platforms and playbooks and ecosystem together and accelerate the recovery in Ukraine and accelerate the delivered outcomes in Africa, then we're winning, right? We are about people and place. So can you tell us some of the things you're doing in Africa at the moment and where, please?
Sure. So depending on how you count and what you choose to count as a new city, there's several dozen to a couple hundred new cities under construction across Africa. These are sort of fulfilling a variety of purposes. Some are kind of modeled as tech hubs. Places like Nigeria, Kenya, they've got these burgeoning tech scenes, but maybe the existing cities and their infrastructure aren't well equipped to attract and retain those workers, to support them in terms of reliable utilities, these kind of things. So there are some tech entrepreneurs who sort of want to recreate those kind of ecosystems. There are city developments that are sort of more industrial in scale, They want to attract investment, manufacturing on a broad scale, which Africa has by and large struggled to do over the past couple of decades. And so create a more conducive environment for that sort of large-scale investment, which can create a significant number of jobs and target issues like youth unemployment in particular, which are quite high. There's a wide variety of these types of city projects, and we're working with a number of them in a number of countries, and also with, like I said before, with governments on legislative matters, maybe taking sort of the base special economic zone legislation that exists in a country. How can we take this and equip it to be something that works not just for, say, an industrial park, but something that is mixed use in nature, that is supportive of urban development, paired with industry and logistics and all these kind of things, to really sort of capture those agglomeration effects, those benefits from concentrating people and investment and resources in particular places. So to that end, in a couple of different countries we're sort of focused on. In Zambia, working with the government there on SEZ reform, and there's a number of partner city projects that we're working with there. There are tech hub type projects in Nigeria and Zanzibar that we're currently working with. In Rwanda, we've partnered with the Rwanda Development Board, their principal investment promotion agency. One, to be sort of a founding partner of that coalition of stakeholders that I mentioned before. But two, to sometime within the next couple of years, launch a early stage investment fund for these types of projects to be domiciled within the Kigali International Financial Center. A lot of these projects out there, you know, if they can get to a point where they're in a position to go after full feasibility study funding or phase one build-out funding, they can go get that. There's, you know, the Ex-Im banks, development banks, traditional banks, but a lot of projects, it's getting to that point. And so within the next couple of years, and you know, hopefully the macro kind of situation improves, looking to help launch a fund really targeting that pre-feasibility stage, almost like a venture style system. So that's really an overview of the kind of activities we're doing to support these development of new cities. They're happening in Africa with or without us. But we think it's important that if they're going to be built, it's important to think about that governance layer. You know, cities aren't just real estate projects. As I think someone on an earlier panel said, there's an organic sort of nature to cities. And they go beyond just being a sort of collection of buildings, and it's really important to get those sort of bones right, to get that governance layer right, if you don't want to repeat the sort of existing problems with sort of Africa's growing collection of megacities that just are not equipped financially and politically in terms of their structure and fiscal capacity and actual sort of municipal powers. They're just not well equipped to handle what they're facing. And so this is sort of our effort to help, you know, it's not a magic bullet, but at the margin, sort of make Africa's increasingly urban future a more productive urban future.
And Henry, one of the things thanks for that I enjoyed in our first conversation was one of the first things that you're doing with your work in Ukraine, and I think this might be translatable to my experiences in Africa, is building an ethical framework around procurement and engagement. I'd love it if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yes, would you mind if I jump over there and show what we have? Thank you. So would you open the second window too right away?
While Henry's loading that up, for people in the room that want to get involved and support in different ways or participate in these projects, what's the process there in terms of, obviously there's a lot of strategic and advisory at the front end, but then, you know, these cities need to be built and they need to then operate. How can people be involved?
Sure. So if anyone specifically is doing any kind of business in Africa, that the sort of Next 50 Cities coalition that I mentioned, we're trying to connect folks who are working on the kinds of technologies like you all are to our partner projects. They're looking for partners both sort of in Africa and from abroad. So to the extent that we can help make some of those introductions, because they are interested in, we're working with both sort of maybe what you might call smart cities and dumb cities, working with both in terms of how technology infused they are. But a lot of them are really sort of adopting this sort of smart city framework, which makes a lot of sense, I think, if you are building from the ground up and your sort of goal is to have reliable electricity, internet, and all of these kind of things that you need to really be able to implement smart city technology. So, and in addition to that, we also host sort of conferences and other things like that. So there are ways to get involved, but from a business point of view, yeah, we'd love to help connect folks to partner projects looking for investment in Africa.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing I'll mention while Jerry's doing this is another task force that's very popular and interesting that we will launch soon is remote and Indigenous communities. I know that in the United States and also in my country, providing digital equity to those regions is incredibly important. I'll let you take over, Henry.
Yes, thank you. I need a little bit of a, where's my, oh, here it is. So first of all, I want to, I'm sorry, Jerry, can you help me just make it a full screen, please? So first of all, I really much appreciate everyone being here. I am grateful for being here and being invited to speak, because part of my job, as you got about to hear, I am not going to be talking about the war. I'm not going to be talking about the atrocity of the war. We are here to present opportunity of Ukraine. We're here to present something that we all can agree on, that is an opportunity of historic nature today. So without further ado, I want to point out to you that we're talking about opportunity where every one of your companies, every one I heard on the stage today can participate in, and I believe it's going to be one of the best opportunities for every one of your companies to be part of what you're about to see. So as we go through this, obviously you will understand the damage that is being done. It's been all over the news. But right now, $750 billion figure is very conservative estimate. We're looking at about 1.2, 1.3 million just in damages. But with that damage comes an opportunity to build something literally from scratch, greenfield, where we can integrate technologies at the design phase. We don't have to work with legacy, as we talked about earlier. Ukraine has no legacy. Imagine what can be done if there's no legacy that we today with technologies. We can overcome 32 years of neglect, mismanagement, to make Ukraine one of the best countries in the world because of the technology leap that we had over the last 30 years. And consider that Ukraine has every metal, every element on the Mendeleev table in the ground. Third largest deposit of lithiums. We need it today for everything we do. So, but we also have to ask a very hard questions. Ask yourself, why in 32 years nobody was able to fight corruption in Ukraine? Why is it so integrated into the country when you enter in daycare, they're already asking you for a bribe? I'm not kidding, that's reality. And the reason for that is because in our view, it's a classic blue ocean, red ocean strategy. There was never an alternative that we can show, that we can use. Unfortunately, the war is such a, let's put it, disruptive event in the text speak that allows us, it's a tipping point, that allows the country to basically say, enough of that. And what we are talking about, identifying three major problems in Ukraine. Number one is trust. And what happened during the war, right, as you'll hear me talk about, that has changed. Number two problem, that Soviet legacy of centrally planned economy de facto cannot work in a democracy that is Ukraine today. And number three is mentality. Mentality of people of dependency, where they are waiting to be told what to do, versus the mentality of entrepreneurship that we all believe in. So that's the historic opportunity to change the country from what we know it was for the last 32 years of independence to what it can be as the leading indicator for all of other economies. Think about us as Americans coming in and using Ukraine as a laboratory to demonstrate a digital democracy. And so here's our goal, is a digital transparency. The reason we can do this is because of decentralization, first and foremost. I moved back to my native land in Kyiv. I'm lucky enough to be a refugee from one same city twice. And basically, the reason is decentralization. It allows us to build economies bottom up. We create a concept of, as you'll see, municipal economic unions, where we bring in 4 to 5 municipalities together into economic union to create a balanced economy. And then we all talk about IoT, right? We spoke with David, like really taking everything and connecting it at the ground phase. And then blockchain. And that's our ultimate goal. And outcome is our goal is a digital democracy, real-time governance. But I will go even beyond that. Think about that every citizen now can get a dividend based on the performance of a GDP of a municipality. We have the technology to do that, where every citizen is contributing to overall growth of that city. And when we talk about health, that is unbelievable opportunity, especially now, as you'll see. So part of my presentation today is to really, for you to understand, we are building a platform. EOT Core is a design to run municipal economies. It is a blockchain system that allows any transaction from any source of any amount, buying a cup of coffee or putting a $100 million deal together. Think about, we talk about mirror cities, right? Think about metaverse of connecting the digital world to the real world, where the piece of land is really basically duplicated right in the metaverse, and then every time we get a permit, we get a sold apartment, it's all clear. We are basically driving this technology to kill corruption at its core, to make it irrelevant. That's the whole purpose of Blue Ocean strategy. We've seen it in Uber, Netflix, and many other companies. So for us, this platform is the key because we can make it much more efficient and effective. So now coming back, I want to talk about our pipeline today in a very high terms for you to understand the size of the opportunity for every company that presented today. And what we're looking at the cluster industry. And if you look at the right side of the slide, you will see that every industry going after will have a sustainable innovation cycle embedded for that particular industry by co-locating startup ecosystems, incubators, accelerators, etc., specifically focused on that industry to create sustainable innovation cycle, where we're cutting down the time, the money for startup to get to the market, and we're giving residents opportunity to constantly be on top of innovation. That's the future, we believe, of sustainable innovation cycle across the country. So now, this is where a platform. If you look at the top, Business Media Network, I'll talk about, we are basically, a great story, separate story, you'll see in a second, but we connected the country. We built a digital platform that allows the country, the businesses, the municipality to be connected. Number 2, Mayors Club, connecting over 537 mayors already out of 1,472. And obviously, World Trade Center network, I'm president of World Trade Center, is 320 cities around the world that we connect to all of the businesses, that we can bring them in. And at the end of the day, you see on the right side, education. As we're coming back, right, education is everything. But the current situation is critical to understand. Mayors of Ukraine do not expect anything from central government. Number 1. Number 2, they will never give up their independence. Civil war. Number 3, they're sitting on the vast size of physical resources. Just massive, country-like. Bigger than Rhode Island, most of them. Number 4, their future depends on the one thing only, creation of jobs. And number 5, where we come in, they have no idea, zero, below freshman level understanding of what to do. And I'm not joking, I'm not kidding, that's the reality. What we, as an American, what our government, I believe, do not understand today, that $1 trillion sitting on the sideline, where we have no project that anyone would finance, doesn't matter if it's a BlackRock or private equity or individual investor. So we have to come up, we have to think differently. We have to come up with different alternatives, how to structure all of that to get through that pain point. And how we do this, number 1 is education. I want to point a couple things here. I'm not going to spend time about principles, you know all that. But look at the right here at the corner, 60% of revenues of every educational course will go to the teachers. We're changing the pay model for the teachers, for educators. But more importantly, we are creating a whole different way of educating through technical certification. Notice that we're starting to certify municipalities in anti-corruption. You don't go through this course, don't even talk to us. We have leverage now. You want economic development? Play by the rules. Play by the new rules. Play transparently to all, right? So this is our vision of a smart city, which has many layers, 6 layers, so we can really take a look at the design phase where a lot of people on the stage, they talked about technology infrastructure. But that is the critical component at the beginning, not when everything is built, in order to create a sustainable quality of life experience for every citizen. So what most of the Ukrainian mayors don't yet understand is how, Jerry, where's that link on the YouTube? Maybe I lost it already, sorry. So how, what they're gonna compete for is not money or projects. They're gonna compete for people. And the quality of life is gonna be the determining factor of that vision. Please enjoy. Imagine new Ukraine with balanced and sustainable economy supported by alternative energy with technologies of 21st century. It all starts here with smart city in Western Ukraine that will launch rebirth of a nation. Our base is industrial park Zahid Resource with logistics, storage and customs already in operations today. To create a balanced economy for decades ahead, we create an economic union between 4 territorial communities to create a balanced economy. First smart city of Ukraine will cover 57 square kilometers. For us, future of Ukraine is all about quality of life. Here, on over 300 hectares, where citizens will live, play, and come together. High quality of life is impossible without diversified and strong economy. And it all starts with industrial base to create jobs and tax income to local budget to service people. Biomass power plant, waste management facility, construction materials, production of industrial robots and equipment, all will happen here. Ukrainian Agro Valley will allow Ukraine to give the world some of the best quality products at the lowest possible cost, grown in the most sustainable way. Agro Valley has 100 hectares designated for agro showroom of the world, where countries will represent their agro sectors. Future of Ukraine is all about kids. Olympic Village will provide the best possible opportunity for any child to find his or her passion. With over 500 residents for orphans of the war, the Olympic Village will become the center of the community. It is designed to be used by every citizen of the community. It will attract many international competitions and tourists to Ukraine visit. There will be 75% centers around Ukraine. Pharmaceutical hub will create additional thousands of jobs in some of the most advanced fields, medical equipment, pharma, and cosmetic production. Here, like in all other industrial parks, there will be a startup ecosystem integrated with real companies who are residents of the pharma hub, creating a sustainable innovation cycle, saving money and time to get to the market. Academic City, it will be a joy of the community, its youth, its future, its brain power. We imagine a large university system in which each college is represented by a different country, creating a truly international campus of ideas and friendships. Logistics is everything to the economy of any city. In the first smart city of Ukraine, in addition to rail, road, and proximity to the border, we have 2 airports, which gives us, our economic union, access to all means of transportation. Ukraine and its people deserve the best for defending freedom of all. We want to get rid of Soviet and Russian legacy. We need to think differently. This is an alternative that will eradicate corruption in Ukraine. We want the country that will lead the world. This project is the prototype for the rest of Ukraine. We invite you to be part of it. Welcome to New Ukraine. What I want to show now, and Jerry, if you can help me switch back to the presentation, thank you. And I want to show you, this is our vision. This vision has been very well received within Ukraine at all levels of government, but more importantly from the international community. And the reason I'm here today is because what I'm about to show is partly is our deal flow and what we focused on. Because as you'll see, what we are focused on are so fundamental that it allows us to really think about creating industries that we have not really seen around the world yet. So let me start with the first, I'm sorry. First was bioeconomy. Right now, we have a lot of technologies. We want to be green, but we need biomass. And Ukraine is a country that has 4 million marginal hectares of land. We are now basically creating industrial biomass production, which will lead to new industries, bioplastic, biopharmaceuticals, biopaper, and so on. Just think about that impact. Think about the opportunity that allows us to capture carbon credits at the ground and then give it to the municipality as a financial instrument that they can use to build the rest of the infrastructure. That's the opportunity we're discussing. Now, we'll talk about water. Majority of the pipes in Ukraine are still there from Soviet times. One of our clients and our partner is basically as a technology which allow the vegetable, the fruit, to have 2 more weeks of a shelf life. It allows us to save 7 to 12 times use of water. Think about that impact, right? And that's what we're after. We're after those type of big things. Here's the next one. Network of biomass power stations, energy independence, energy efficiency, energy security. And think about Miscanthus gives us an opportunity to have, because it's a 20-year growth cycle, have a 20-year guaranteed price for raw material in energy. We're talking about Depsol technology. The insulation will save 40% of energy use across the country of every new building. That's the smart, where we're integrating all of it, not just the materials, not just technology, not just resource, but all of it together at the same time. That's the opportunity Ukraine gives them. So when we spoke to a bunch of other people, we come back to the largest media network. We built 1,472 websites. And I want to stress with you, this has been done by students of Ukraine. This is an American company we set up, and we gave 20% to the students of Ukraine who spent a year during the war building all of this. All of those technical tools are available for free to every municipality, to every business of Ukraine now. We connected the country, and that's the biggest accomplishment to date, because that gives an opportunity to communicate with the country. So now coming back, and this is my favorite, this is my baby, third baby as I call it. We are building 70 of those centers. The kids of Ukraine are unbreakable. They're children of the war. Just think about it. Think about opportunity of creating centers that is the first and foremost home away from home for the whole community, for the whole family, which is obviously the #1 unit of the whole society. And that's what we want to do. We want to change education, where we are reducing the burden of budget burden of the municipalities. And we're bringing, in each one of those locations, will be at least 100 businesses, micro businesses, people who are teaching gymnastics, robotics, or basketball. So now, think about opportunities in healthcare, rehabilitation center across the country, right? Think about opportunity of scaling this. We talked during the lunch with a bunch of people. This is an ecstatic opportunity where we can change the healthcare. We can build the healthcare system from bottom up, the right way. Think about trying to change it here in the United States. We've seen it over the years, right? So now we can show, every one of your companies can show how it works in reality. And you know what's funny? All of the investment you're going to be making will be protected by our government. So, and this is one of the interesting projects. We're creating a financial district of Ukraine. This is a distressed asset project. There's a lot of it in Ukraine. So those of you who invest in real estate, smart buildings, this is what we want to do here. And lastly, what Ukraine needs, one answer, everything. Literally everything. The one thing that our Congress agrees on, Democrats and Republicans, is Ukraine. And Republicans, rightly so, demand transparency, accountability. 100% behind that. So what the role of education? Again, everything. Without education, the economy cannot grow. What is the entrepreneurship key? Again, everything. Why? Because without entrepreneurial drive, nothing can happen. And why now? The reason is because now, the biggest historically, as materialistic as it sounds, historically the biggest money were always made after the war. It doesn't matter what war you'll take. This war will be over this year. I don't have any inside data, but I believe the counteroffensive will start now. We'll break the Russian into 2 parts, and that's going to be basically over, excluding Crimea. And lastly, for us, the value we bring to all of you is an American company, transparency and accountability, with the ability to implement the inflation. And I want to thank my partner, who's a former CTO, Fortune 10 country, who created all the digital stuff that you're going to see. And many of you will be speaking to him next week, because he is the guy who's way smarter than I am. My job is to be in front of you and give you an opportunity to see everything we do in Ukraine. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is that on?